Meanwhile, in Russia, they are experiencing a significant impact to their military readiness based on the continued troubles that they have in their invasion of Ukraine, with some saying that they have lost nearly half of their combat effectiveness since the beginning of that invasion. There's a variety of different sources for this information. We're gonna start with Admiral Tony Radakin of the UK. It's the formal head of the UK's armed forces, chief military advisor to the Prime Minister, told a parliamentary hearing that Russia was now, quote, so weak that it could no longer wage a military counteroffensive on its own, saying Russia has lost nearly half the combat effectiveness of its army. Last year, it fired 10 million artillery shells, but at best can produce 1 million shells a year. It lost 2,500 tanks, and at best can produce 200 tanks a year. Now, of course, theoretically, you can, like Ukraine is getting help from other countries, Russia can get help from other countries and is doing so, but it can't necessarily make up for what has been lost. In February, an open source intelligence group said that 1,000 Russian tanks have been destroyed, 500 more captured, and estimates of deaths vary widely, but none of them are good. With some saying 43,000 Russian soldiers had been killed, 180,000 wounded since February of last year. Others, including the US military, believes that up to 100,000 Russian and 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed or injured. 40,000 civilians, obviously been devastating for all involved, but a lot of this is not easy to replace, certainly not in a short period of time. And yet the war continues. If they'd taken my advice to simply turn east and just keep going until you hit Moscow, they could have saved a lot of money, a lot of tanks, and a lot of people's lives. But Jayar, what do you think?
Yeah, this is, I guess it's an illustration, because I think at this point in our world, conflict talks, we see these major powers as being untouchable. And this seemed like, even for folks who were against what they were up to, that this is gonna be devastating. And it has been. So many people have been displaced and killed over this whole thing, right? But this is still an illustration that these major powers don't always win. It's not as simple as it seems, which was a lot of things that happened when we ran up in Iraq and Afghanistan and all those. Yep. It wasn't as clean as we would like to advertise it to be. Same here, except there's still, hopefully, because I hope people don't look at this, or maybe any kind of opposition to them look and go, oh, they're weak, and time to have some kind of aggressiveness towards them. Because that's just like the way warmongers think. And that's the first thing I was concerned with, because look, who needs more conflict? Who needs more attacks or retaliation? Whatever it is that could possibly happen, which I don't think necessarily will, but that's always the concern when it comes from our American perspective is, oh, weaken military, weaken. People are gonna attack. So there's this thought process that, after this damaged them and their effectiveness, what could be next? Could it expand because of that weakened state? Hopefully not.
Yeah, it's just devastating. Every time there's a reminder of these numbers, the immediate thing that I think of is, what are we going to be talking about in 6 months or in a year? How many more deaths on both sides will there be between now and then? Needless deaths that never needed to be lost for the perceived vague influence effect that it has on certain oligarchs, all of it just for that. It's devastating. Not only the Ukrainian soldiers and civilians that are dying, but tons of Russians who are being drafted in against their will and sent to the front lines with no experience, no training, little equipment, just sent there to almost immediately die, with nobody on the side of the Russians seeming to care about the lives that are lost, even of their own people. It's devastating.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.